And we're back. All right, guys. So this one, I just wanted to go over how I would start a mix. In particular, how panning and volume is considered, but also I'll start with some other basic stuff. Some of these things, concepts I've gone over before, but it's always good to have a refresher. So I'm going to go to Pro Tools and create a new session. It all starts here, right? So I'm going to make sure that my track is named properly. I'm using this Rumba Chonta track here, so I'm going to make sure it's named properly. There we are. And then I'm just going to make sure it's saved locally. I don't have a template for this particular track. It's more of a like Latin percussive track. I'm going to say interleaved. And here's the thing I get asked a few times every year is, the session is recorded in 24-bit 44.1. Shouldn't I just make my session that exact same thing? And I would say, well, another question that comes to mind is that aren't the tracks recorded in the resolution that they've been recorded in, and even when you convert them, it's still the same resolution. That's all true, but what doesn't get talked about a lot is how the sample rate of your session is actually dictates the audio quality of your plugins. So although the tracks themselves are not at a higher sample rate, the way you are processing and your headroom and everything that's associated with that is being processed at a higher sample rate and bit depth. So we're going to keep it 24 and 48. And then remember we did those I/O settings here. I'm going to import those just to show you that that it shows up here, this mix pre-mixing. If you have other ones, you can obviously import those, but it shows up in your I/O settings menu here. And then I'm going to make sure I say prompt for location. Okay. This is, again, so critical, making sure that you're going to the right folder here. I'm making sure I'm going to my 96C folder and that it is on the drive that I have dedicated to mixes for this class. Cool, I had another session up. I don't need to save that. And then I'm just going to drag and drop these files into there. If you have some kind of strange preference on or or something that has to do with elastic audio, dragging and dropping your tracks into here will do some strange things to them. That's exactly what happened here. That's what I was afraid of, but I'm actually kind of glad that they did show up like this. This will make it so that it conforms to your session tempo. So we're going to turn that off. So what I'm going to do is the best way to do that is just to completely delete them. So we're going to say select all, and we're going to go clear, and then delete forever. This completely deletes everything from your session, even from your audio files folder, right? And then we're also going to delete all these tracks. Shift. I'm going to show you where that setting is. Right click, delete. Excellent. So we're back at square one. So the setting that was is in your preferences under processing, and then this enable elastic audio. I'm going to turn that off. And then I'm going to say this drag and drop desktop conforms to session tempo. I'm going to say no files and then say okay. Now when I drag and drop these files back in, they will be at the tempo that they were recorded at. And there'll be no elastic audio on. No need to have elastic audio on at this stage, especially not on every track. That can really burn up some CPU. All right. Now I'm going to press play, but I want to warn you that it might be loud because these tracks are recorded Um, let's see, make sure master fader. These tracks are just not mixed, right? So it could be loud. We're going to see what that looks like in our master fader. I'm also going to go to my mix window and see what that looks like here. Oh, this was somehow set to Vox. Weird. Let's go to output. There we are. Cool. So I'm trying to choose a section that is relatively where everything is playing at once. It looks like these larger horn hits are where everything's playing at once, and see if where our levels are at. So it looks like we're peaking, right? So I showed you one way of doing that is to drop all your faders and then adjust your master fader. So that's one way of doing it. Maybe a better way of doing it is to do it with the audio suite. I'm going to go Shift Option Command and then grab the tracks. This selects all your tracks. That's a key command for it. And then I'm going to go to Audio Suite, Other, and Gain. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to drop the gain of this by a very specific amount, by about 6 dB, and this will give me 6 dB of headroom from the beginning of my session. So -6, and then I'm going to hit render, and you'll actually see the clips, the clip waveforms get smaller. And now when I play it back without adjusting any volume faders or anything, you should see a difference in the output level. And we do. It's great. So that's kind of a good way of setting up your session from a multi-track session. Is to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. This now allows me to add effects and add processing and kind of start from a good reference point. Now, we could do busing and make sure we have all the tracks bussed out, color coded, and grouped, but I'm going to focus just on purely on the mix here. So the first thing, I'm just listening back to kind of give a priority, what would take priority, and then some things that I would, at least initially, want to pan out. What I think of is like what I want the focus to be. That's usually what I want in the center, right? If you listen to most music on any platform or any genre, you notice that vocals are usually in the middle, kick drum, bass is usually in the middle, and then like all the supporting roles in the mix are panned out to some degree, right? There's lots of different schools of thought of like how to pan. Some people say no, there shouldn't be any different. There should be no gray area. It's either center, left, or right. They call that LRC type of panning, just left, right, or center. I tend to just do whatever sounds good. But let's kind of go through here and listen back, and I'll kind of give you my take on this. Let's go to a section that's actually playing and we'll loop it. Yeah, so obviously the bass and the and other sections of this are priority. Let's take this. No, let's solo these tracks. Okay, I'm thinking that's going to be centered. Snare is centered. That snare up and down, they're going to be centered. Hi-hat, we're going to I always like with drums to pan things from the drummer's perspective. So hi-hats are usually on the left if it's a right-handed drummer. Great. go to the next instrument. This seems a little auxiliary and is doing a kind of a pattern close to what you might hear on the hi-hat. So I'm actually going to give us a little bit of space to go to the left. Yeah, it kind of gives me a little more separation, and it'll allow anything that we take away from the center is going to allow the ones we keep in the center to be highlighted. So I think that's a good move. Next one. Let's compare that to the original hi-hat. So very much the same. I might pan this also to the right just to give a little more, again, more space, and maybe even further just to give it a little more width. That seems like too much. I'm actually going to bring it in just a little bit. Split the difference. Cool. Next one. Now this is just panning, just kind of getting my levels together. I can change this at any point, but this kind of gives me a little bit better idea of what the mix might sound like. Again, kind of an auxiliary instrument that might stay center. Let's see what else we got. Definitely center with that. 2 mics on the bass, staying in the center. Marimba is already panned left and right. I'm going to keep that. I'm going to compare that to the hi-hat pattern. Yeah, I think this can stay out of the way of the hi-hat pattern and stay on the left side. I'm going to pan it pretty hard to the left. And also, I like to see what that instrument is doing in the mix. It looks like it's just kind of accenting here and there. So I find that things that are just accents are nice to have on. Like you can be a little more adventurous with the panning to kind of take the focus away of the center, and then so the center sounds fresh or sounds like renewed. Yeah, I think that's going to work. Now we have a horn section coming up. And with horns, there's a couple ways of doing it. Lots of ways, infinite ways of doing it. But the way I like to think of it is that for something like this, already I'm thinking, yeah, this probably needs to be panned out to some degree. Also, we see it kind of really focusing in on the kind of accenting the same way the guitar is. At least just by looking at the waveform, that's what it's looking like. Let's beef up the waveform just so we can see it a little bit better. Yeah, it looks like it's only coming in on the guitar part. Let's see what that sounds like. Yeah, it's not doing anything close to the guitar part, so we can be a little more adventurous with this guy here. So let's hear where these horns sound together. I'm thinking big, broad kind of sounds. The way I like to think of it is like lower frequencies, lower frequency instruments should be more centered, and then higher frequency instruments should be panned out a little bit more. This gives a little more weight towards the center and gives the higher frequency content a little more space to kind of sparkle on the edges. So that's usually how I like to pan instruments. Let's take them one by one. So that's double. That's cool. I'm going to pan these just equally left and right so I have an illusion of center. That's cool. I like that. I think that's going to work out. Let's try this next one. I like that. That's doubled as well. Yeah, a lot of nice. That's a really well recorded and well played horn arrangement. I'm guessing these are the trumpets, or not trumpets, but the higher saxophones. Oh, doubled again. Yeah, I like that. That's cool. That this has a little improvised moment in it, and it being panned off to the right kind of helps with that guitar part that's panned off to the left, and it being it's more accenting kind of featured part. Everything else is like really rhythmic and really down the middle, whereas these are more like colorful accents that like add a lot of depth to the track. So let's hear what it sounds like all together. Now I haven't listened to it everything together, and it's not level matched yet, but let's see. Cool. So let's take an idea of how levels are going to work out here. So um, first we have to give a little priority. What has priority? Right away, I think the horns can come out a little bit more. So an easy way to do that, we can select all the tracks here. And again, I'm not grouping. I would normally have these grouped and bust and do things that way. But these can be a little bit louder. Like I can imagine that being more of an like armada like type of horn sound. But I can see that also the slap bass can definitely come down. This will make it seem like these are a little bit louder. I'm gonna drop it all the way down and kind of mix it back in. Okay. So this is a DI track and this is a mic track. DI usually sounds a little thinner, a little more, a little more mid-rangey. I'm going to use this kind of blend in a little bit more and then to fatten up the tone and use this as our main signal. All right, back in. Cool. I can bring this up just a hair. This can be panned out a little bit. Cool. Let's hear this. This can come out more. Cool. Cool. Hi-hat, I kind of like it there. Yeah, I can imagine some EQ things happening there. And then let's hear the horns by themselves again one more time. Man, that's a great horn section, and they're balanced so well. You don't really need to do anything with them. So that's the kind of the joy of playing with the really great musicians or tracking really great musicians. It makes the mixing process a lot easier. I can imagine just bussing these and doing some light automation, maybe bring up the automation towards the end of this track as it trails off. But this is sounding like decent. Just the little adjustments here and there. Again, more of just kind of like what it'd sound like to be in the band. If I was watching from the audience, where I can imagine where certain instruments might be. Another way to route to do these the panning of these tracks here is to kind of maybe like cheat them on one side or the other so they're not like perfectly balanced. I can imagine these being more on the on the right side to balance out that hi-hat pattern in the percussive section. Might be a cool um, might be a cool sound to achieve as well. Yeah, that kind of makes me feel like I'm in an auditorium listening to this track. I like that better actually. That works for me. Again, I'm just trying to think creatively and think, in this case, I don't think the mix would need, tons of processing or lots of routing and effect sends or anything like that. And it's probably want to stay truer to the actual nature of it, make it a little more natural sounding. So I'm trying to think of it as like a performance rather than as a production. So that's kind of why I'm starting it off this way, right? But just wanted to go with some practical things. Every mix is different, and you might be doing automation with your panning, or you might be setting the panning exactly where it is and not adjusting it any further. It's all, but if you have intention behind each move, then it's the right move, all right? So I hope that was helpful, guys. Um, we're gonna continue on our train here. The adjustment and the first stages of a mix are so important. They allow you to be a little more flexible within your mix. So take these to heart and hope they help you in your mixes.